Good morning. Welcome to the live in-person and live Zoom worship service of the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside. I hope this morning finds you well. And our opening hymn this morning is number 38, Morning Has Broken, from the Gray Hymnal. Feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you, but with a mask. And please stand in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn number 38, Morning Has Broken.
Morning has broken like the first morning, blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rains do fall, solid from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sung in completeness where God's deep has. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the moonlight, it is our play. Praise within nation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
Thank you. You may be seated. Again, welcome. I'm glad you're here this morning. Thank you for joining us in person, and thank you, those of you who are joining us remotely by Zoom, where we will continue live streaming and posting these services on our YouTube channel for our virtual attendees. I am Tinka Friend, a member of the worship committee, and I will be your worship associate for today. Other members of the committee that you will hear from include Alec Peck, our music coordinator. We welcome you to join us this morning with an open mind and an open heart, and with muted electronic devices, please. So if you have not done so, please set it on vibrate, mute, or you may turn it off. We come from different places, different religions, different beliefs, and different backgrounds. We hope you will find comfort, connection, challenge, and love here at this church. And you are all welcome to our community. Although our doors are open, the pandemic is not over. So while we are in the sanctuary, please keep your masks on and remember to socially distance. So before we move into the service, there are a few announcements we would like to share. And we will be mentioning several websites, email addresses, and phone numbers. At the end of the service, we will leave up a slide with all of this information, and it is available on our website. So the first Sunday luncheon will be held on February 5th, and the theme is Burrito Bar. Yum, yum. The Lunar Fest book sale will be held next week on January 28th and 29th. We are looking for volunteers to help set up on Friday, January 27th, both before and after the noon board meeting, and also to help at the sale. So please see Kate, raise your hand, Kate, or Linda, right over there, to sign up. And we thank you in advance. Oh, you may also see Linda for the burrito bar. Okay, and now Pat Kawunder, the chair of Women's Fed, has some announcements she would like to share.
Morning. I wanted to make the announcement myself because I really think Women's Fed, which is the women's group of this church, has a fine tradition. We've done wonderful things over the years. For example, we sent coloring books to school children after Katrina in New Orleans. Anyway, we really do have a great tradition, but we got kind of behind sort of during COVID, but I really want us to get going again. And so I wanted to tell you that the February meeting, which I think is February 11th, it was going to be myself and Martha Kaslow talking about vacation stuff, but Martha can't make it. So we're going to do that in May. And our February meeting is going to be twofold. There was a lot of interest in the book group. And so what we're going to do in the first meeting is invite people to talk about a book they really liked during as part of our meeting. And also I wanted to ask people to brainstorm about topics for Women's Fed. For example, I would love to do a Women's Fed meeting. A lot of us have lived through this major change in women's rights and women's professional development and that whole thing. And I'd love to share stories about that because I bet other people are like me and they have some really interesting things that happened over the years, you know, beginning with prejudice and discrimination and ending hopefully with some success. So meeting is February 11th. Refreshments will be served, 1 p.m. If anybody needs childcare, please let me know. And I hope to see every woman in the church there at the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if we're going to Zoom it or not. Adam, would it be possible to Zoom the Women's Fed meeting? It's 1 o'clock on Saturday.
Well, right now, let's just say in person, and then if we can Zoom, then we'll do that.
Let me put it this way. If one person asks me to Zoom, I will. Okay, I know it's Adam's time is precious and I don't want to use it. Adam's time is precious and I don't want to use it if nobody's going to Zoom. But yeah, no, that's a really good question. Thank you, Nick.
Okay, thank you, Pat. So, Women's Fed, did you say February 11th?
Yes.
February 11th, which is a Saturday.
Yes.
Is it going to be here? Here at 1 p.m. in the parish hall. All women, please come and join them, and it's going to be a nice fellowship together. Okay, and this concludes today's announcements. So now, I invite you to sit back, take a slow, deep breath, and put yourself in a spiritually receptive place as we move into the worship hour. You are welcome to read with me the mission statement of our church. The mission is to foster a diverse religious community that celebrates life, affirms the individual, encourages spiritual growth and open thought, and works to advance social justice and environmental sustainability. Thank you. Now, our speaker today, if those of you were coming here to listen to Kathy Sticklow, unfortunately, she's not here. Her flight ran into issues, but fortunately, the UUCR member, Walter Russell, has volunteered to speak for us instead. Walt was taken to the Spokane, Washington UU Church in his youth, and then attended Boise, Idaho UU Fellowship from age 26 to 30. He then attended UUCR briefly, returning again at age 52, then again at age 69. Keeps coming back. He earned bachelor degrees in physics and math from the University of Idaho. So Walt was raised by a left-leaning father who made him watch Walter Cronkite nightly. And so he viewed the Vietnam War, the Bay of Pigs, and the Cuban Missile Crisis. He was made to watch the March on Washington instead of playing with his toys. His father's reason? When your mom and I are gone, this day will still be remembered, so pay attention. And about our sermon, as we know, we had just celebrated Martin Luther King Day. And Martin Luther King Day is a federal holiday in the United States marking the birth of Martin Luther King Jr. It is observed on the third Monday of January each year. Ronald Reagan signed the holiday into law in 1983, and it was first observed 3 years later on January 20th, 1986. Some states resisted observing the holiday and giving it alternative names, but it was officially observed in all 50 states for the first time in the year 2000 in honor of the civil rights leader. And now for our lightings. We have two lightings of sacred flames. The first is the occupied Indigenous Peoples Remembrance Candle. The second is the lighting of our own chalice, the symbol of our faith. We walk upon the traditional territories of diverse and sovereign peoples, the original peoples of this land, who continue to cry out for justice and self-determination. This spot that the church is on, this spot that we occupy, was first the sacred space of several groups of Indigenous peoples, including the Cahuilla, the Cupeño, and the Serrano. We, the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside, light this sacred flame as the stewards of this sacred and holy place. We are blessed with a space and opportunity to strive out our common principles, to bring justice, equity, and compassion in our daily lives, to resist all that threatens the earth and her people, and to be part of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And let those thoughts carry us forth as we journey and worship together this morning. Today's reading for the chalice lighting is Chalice Lighting on Inherent Worth and Dignity by Steve Stock. We light this chalice to celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person, to reaffirm the historical pledge of liberal religion to seek out justice, which transcends mere legality and moves towards the resolution of true equality. And to share that love, which ultimately, beyond even our cherished reason, is the love which unites us. We have a tradition at UUCR to welcome those who are visitors or perhaps returning after some time away. We know it can be uncomfortable to stand up and speak in front of others, and so I will now ask for a volunteer from someone who has been here a while to tell us their name and how they found out about the church. So you're asked to step close to the mic, speak into it directly and clearly so everyone can hear. However, be aware that you will be visible on our Zoom camera and in the recordings of this service, which are posted online. So, do we have any church members who would like to volunteer? Okay, Pat. Please step forward to the mic, tell us your name, how long you've been here, and how you found out about our church.
My name is Pat Kowunder. I found out about this church because I started taking Tai Chi classes in 1985 in the parish hall. And because I was church phobic, it was about 5 years before I ever looked in here. But eventually I did and was welcomed and have found this a wonderful place. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's how it's done. And Bonnie, you're going to be leaving us soon, is that right? So would you step forward and tell us about your journey that brought you here?
Hi, I think I know everybody here, so. I first went to a UU church in Michigan where I was growing up when I was about 20. And having been being a recovering, and that at that time, early recovering Lutheran, I found the UU church was just like home. I walked in and I said, this is home. And so I never joined, but I continued going to UU churches here and there, wherever I was. When I moved here, and I was living in Highland, and was working at Riverside Community Hospital. And I was moving down here to Riverside, and I was talking to one of the nurses that I'd gotten to be friends with, and I said, so tell me about the churches in the area. And she said, she goes to the church across the street, by the way. And she said, well, she told me about this one and that one, but there's one church you really don't want to go to. I said, yeah, what's that? She said, they used to have a minister who was a warlock. I said, yeah, where's that? The tale isn't exactly true, but we've always had pagans, a pagan movement here. So I started coming here, and I started coming in 95. I joined in 96, and I've been coming ever since. And when I get back to Michigan, which is where I'm moving, I have already looked it up. From where I'm moving to the closest UU church is 20 miles. I will make it.
Thank you, Bonnie. Yes, that year of 96, that's I guess the alumni of that year, you and Nick and I and Linda and Pat. That was a good year. We all joined the church. Yes, the year that Cynthia came after. So the church did not have a minister for many years, decades actually. Okay, so for yeah, so is there anyone that's new that would like to come up and share? We all know each other? Okay. Then let me move along to the next part then. Oh, it is our hymn. So our hymn is 121, We'll Build a Land, from the Gray Hymnal. Please, again, feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you, but with a mask on, and stand in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn 121, We'll Build a Land.
We'll build a land where we
seated. And I want to mention that song that we just sang was written by Carolyn McDade, who I actually had the great honor and privilege of meeting and singing with several times. She now is in the declining part of her life, living in a like a group facility where she's taken care of. But once a month, we all gather together by Zoom and sing to her. So that song is very special to me, as is that lady. So this portion of our service is to support our beloved historical church. And this can be accomplished several ways. In addition to the weekly collection, you may send your checks to the church address, which is shown here. You may contribute by PayPal using the QR code, which is also shown, as well as the church website and in the newsletter. Stater Brothers Market gives our church a rebate on Stater grocery cards, which we will have in church each Sunday. I don't see Dinah here today, so is that something that's going to happen today? So is there anyone that's going to be selling the cards today? Okay, all right, so we can still do that. So if you would like to, you get the full value, and the church also receives a percentage. So it costs you nothing extra, and it helps the church out. So instead of seeing Dinah Rowe to purchase the cards, you're going to see Robert. Thank you, Robert. So please donate as the Spirit moves you by whatever method works best for you, and we thank you for your generosity. And to those who give their time and talent, we thank you for your generous care and attention. It takes all of us to keep this church going. So will our ushers now please come forward to receive the collection? Our next hymn is 402, From You I Receive. It's in the gray hymnal. Please feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you, but again with a mask on, and you may stand in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn 402, From You I Receive.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, from this we live. From you I receive, to you I live, together we share, from this we live. From you I receive,
Thank you. You may be seated. Our meditation today is "My Heart Fights for Those Who Can't Fight." It's by Sarah Sutherland Dean. So please get yourself, again, in a receptive place. You may close your eyes if you wish. And listen to the wisdom in these words. Someone called me a bleeding heart liberal. It was not intended as a compliment. However, I will always consider it one of the biggest compliments of my life. My heart bleeds for the underdog. My heart fights for those who cannot fight. My heart rejoices in seeing others overcome adversity. My heart desires love and peace for everyone. My heart is compassionate and empathetic. My heart sees pain in others and wants to help. My heart believes in equality. My heart sees the good in people. And my heart chooses action over fear. Now let us pause for a moment of silence and reflection. Thank you. Now I would like to introduce Walter Russell, who's going to be speaking to us on reflections on Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Before I begin, I wish to mention about, maybe not everybody has seen the tragedy. I think it's in, forgive me if this isn't right, I think Monterey Park, where 10 people have been killed and 10 have been wounded. And I guess it was a celebration for the Lunar New Year in the LA area. We certainly, our hearts certainly go out to all of those who have lost loved ones, and to those who are struggling to continue living. We certainly hope that their outcomes are good and that they can return to the field of life. Thank you. And now, I always like a little bit of levity in everything. So on my bio, I am especially proud that for 30 years, I worked as a mathematician. Actually, I was very much a gopher and also did a lot of programming, which I really liked. At the U.S. Salinity Laboratory, USDA Ag Research Service, ARS, U.S. Salinity Lab, where the theme was to boost crop yield on irrigated lands suffering from the effects of salt buildup. We all had to memorize that, so if we were challenged. But even so, people would call it the Senility Lab, which really used to, thank you, used to really tick us off. And as for my coming going from here, admittedly, I came with well intentions, but I found a girlfriend when I came here around age 30. a future girlfriend, and she said, as the next one said as well, she said, what's it about? And I said, let's have lunch. Let's discuss what Unitarianism is about. I knew her for 4 years. Then I came back and found my third girlfriend who I was looking for someone to marry. I did marry her, and we were together, lived together for 2 years, and then we were married for 6. We also rescued a little black doggie off the street, a Chiweenie, and my wife bailed on me after 6 years, but my little doggie stayed with me, loved us both until his demise of old age. That concludes my bio. And now I wish to do my talk. So, King Day. Can King Day be ignored, viewed as old hat, or have we rolled back to just above King Day's first celebration in 1986? How, oh how could this have happened? Weren't we rolling ahead big time? A little explanation, please. How can you hold what could have been on a cold and lonely night? Sorry. The #1 hit song by 16-year-old Tiffany in 1988 that I just heard Saturday on a replay of American Top 40 with Casey Kasem. So what do you say? Touching. Well, President Barack Obama experienced just the opposite when catapulted into the White House. Inauguration Day, Tuesday, January 20th, 2009. But then the backlash started, really small. Vice President Cheney's face appeared on network news on 2 different days where he said, if I'm hauled before The Hague for war crimes, I cannot guarantee the safety of the current president. Then came the story of Michelle Obama, the First Lady, where she is quoted as having said to her husband, you are the first African-American president. Make sure you aren't the last or the first dead one. Besides ridiculous fringe theories like Brock not being a citizen, there came a crescendo of, are we in a post-racial time now that an African-American has been elected president? This was discussed extensively on the PBS NewsHour with Judy Woodruff on several occasions, as it echo bounced in media circles with the follow-up questions, what does this mean? Can we end all guardrails protecting against discrimination, like the Voting Rights Act and affirmative action? Night after night, guest after guest, many people just want to know. Thank you. Popular enough to be elected twice, President Obama had also walked with the 60 Minutes Leslie Stahl, where he showed his typical day of being in the Oval Office early, reading every daily report prepared by the FBI, CIA, every other agency brief, then putting in a long day, having dinner back in the living quarters with his family, then back to the Oval Office to study late into the night. Leslie did her usual, oh my. As Brock explained, he felt the American people deserved his hard work. He said, and I paraphrase, after all, they are counting on me and I am not going to let them down after all their hard work to put me here. I believe he would have been elected a 3rd time if our Constitution allowed it. Then came the big backlash. President Donald Trump, who commented on the Charlottesville Klan Nazi March, that there were, quotes, very fine people on both sides. Repeatedly played on the news was the clip of the Nazis' marching phrase, Jews will not replace us. Next came the George Floyd filmed killing, known only because of that courageous, 16-year-old girl. Then subsequent demonstrations across the country, Trump asking Milley for 10,000 troops so he could crush those demonstrators. Heartening times for people such as old planners who shed their hoods like longtime David Duke, to the more recent Steve Bannon. Then the January 6th insurrection featuring planner Nazi types like the Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, 3%ers. Speaking of Bannon, the BBC website says, number one, Bannon has repeatedly written on the social media site Getter the following, quote, Lula stole the election. Brazilians know this, end of quote. And two, Bannon has called the people who stormed the buildings freedom fighters. You may say, who cares about Lula or Brazil? Except we have allowed our January 6th insurrection to serve as a template to try to destroy the Brazilian democracy. This happened just a few days ago on January the 8th of 2023. King Day must be used to put a check on the Steve Bannons of our nation. And for what purpose, you say? Abraham Lincoln, in his Gettysburg Address, put it thus, that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. So what does it all mean? Well, just like COVID or the flu, planner Nazis never entirely go away. Only regular inoculations minimize these threats. Annual celebration of King's I Have a Dream message should occur as surely as that annual Christmas celebration of another dreamer, Jesus. I have more. And now to read what I handed out last week. Legislation making Martin Luther King Jr. Day a federal holiday was passed in 1983, and the first nationwide observance took place in 1986. His assassination was on April the 4th, 1968, in Memphis, Tennessee, at the Lorraine Motel. A picture shows his disciples pointing across the courtyard to a building from where the shots came. And why should anyone care? Well, when you view a video clip of the Selma March across the Pettus Bridge, the sudden stop against a group of police, then the advance of baton-wielding police, marchers first backing up, then many falling and being beaten on the bridge, or when you see another clip of demonstrators tumbling along the ground from the pressure of fire hoses being turned on them, and another clip of police dogs lunging at demonstrators, being just barely restrained on leashes, and sometimes biting the demonstrators, you might wonder, who would lead the protesters and why? Oh, why were the demonstrators so passive? Yeah, why? Well, as Martin Luther King Jr. often said, I did not choose the movement chose me. His eloquence caused all to call for him to speak on their behalf. He was a devotee to Gandhi, who preached nonviolent resistance. As for the marches, King explained that someone had to be up front to lead, as the word leader suggests. He explained you had to have several up front, arms linked. So when you were temporarily knocked unconscious by something thrown at you, the others on either side would hold you up until you could walk again and support the others when they were struck. A video clip shows a reporter commenting to a struck King, Reverend, you were bleeding. King replied, yes, we do that, we do bleed. The reporter continued, but why should you be the one up front? You should be protected. After all, you are too valuable to the movement to be deliberately subjected to physical abuse like this. King replied, they call me the leader, so I must set the example and lead, as the name implies. So why should we care? A man long ago led marches as seen on TV, who was unjustly assassinated at a motel in Memphis, Lorraine. A holiday was created for him, and African Americans go to see and participate in parades on the day, and reporters covering the parade say that King had a dream, which was that someday we would all live happily together, and the Kingdom Day Parade helps to make that day a reality, though we are not quite there yet. African Americans interviewed on TV, and I have heard it personally, that Blacks on King Day who have to work sometimes experience several, yeah, your day, a day for you. Where's my day? Such comments make the day painful, something to live through. Just one problem. If you can recall the song of the character in Porgy and Bess called Fast Times, who lures Bess to leave the crippled Porgy. He sarcastically, bravely, slowly says, I can't sing too well, bear with me. It ain't necessarily so. It ain't necessarily so. King was no quitter. Johnson was bitter. Death was the ultimate blow. My apologies to Porgy and Bess on my ad lib. As PBS Weekly half-hour interviewer commentator Tavis Smiley pointed out on each anniversary of King's death, here I am paraphrasing from memory, perhaps King's greatest and most significant speech is not the one everyone remembers, his I Have a Dream speech, but rather the one he delivered in the Riverside Church. That almost no one covered, and that we only have an audio recording of. In it, King declared all poor people of every ethnicity were being oppressed by the military-industrial complex, as President Eisenhower warned us about, and the Vietnam War was a symptom of the ongoing oppression, and that all the Great Society money promised by President Johnson was going to the war. Tavis pointed out that King was assassinated on the first anniversary to the day of the Riverside speech. Tavis also pointed out that President Johnson felt personally betrayed by King by giving the Riverside speech, that after the Voting Rights Act passed under Johnson's leadership, that Johnson felt that he had done all that was due to King and the Vietnam War was a separate issue and that King should stay away from it. One by one, all the civil rights organizations condemned King for his Riverside speech stance, that he had ruined the progress of the movement by attacking Johnson over the war. The NAACP said it was improper for him to link the civil rights to opposition to the war. This is from Politico about King. On the eve of his death, on April the 4th, 1968, he was more controversial and less popular than he had been at any time in his public career. In a Gallup poll conducted in 1963, 41% of respondents rated him favorably, 37% negatively. 4 years later, in 1967, just 32% gave him a favorable rating, whereas 63% viewed him negatively. So what does it all mean? Just another conspiracy theory that Johnson ordered King's assassination? Is that it? Or as a news anchor quoted Genesis at the time, behold the dreamer, let us slay him and see what becomes of his dream. Gandhi's dying words were to urge no reprisal upon either side, the Muslims or the Hindus of India. I think King would urge no reprisal as well, but to continue striving toward freedom and equality for all. King Day is a day for all of us to reflect. Sorry. King Day is a day for all of us to reflect on the three evils mentioned in his Riverside speech. He said, when machines and computers, profit motives, and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplets of racism, extreme materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered. Prior to attending his Poor People's March in DC, King chose to help with the garbage workers' strike in Memphis. Though urged to pass it by and focus on the upcoming march, he said it wouldn't be right if he neglected the call for help from the least amongst us. On King Day weekend, and the day, I feel humbled that I need to expand my level of tolerance, but even more, to see how I'm privileged as a white male with a college degree. I make myself watch any PBS show on other cultures or religions or any other difference. To hear endless whining about the cruelty of the dominant American culture and to hear specific examples of the cruelty, the pain inflicted by people who look just like me. This way I am forced to wallow in others' grief, which I first don't like experiencing, but then am pulled in because their story is tragic, and the mistreatment is delivered by ignorant, scapegoat-loving people, the kind of thinking that I have chafed under as well. I am forced to feel sympathy and to also face any prejudice that I have that causes me to misunderstand. Last Thursday, on Thursday alone, PBS offerings featured a point of view show on Muslims feeling white wrath following 9/11. Then a group of whites discussing if voting should be made too easy. And finally, a show on Alaskan Native culture. Friday had the US and the Holocaust, while Saturday had freedom songs, music of the civil rights movement. When the Kingdom Day holiday was first declared, there was a great backlash, with many declaring they would ignore it, go to work, or they would do their personal work. Commentators questioned if the average American was treating the day as a holiday, which they declared could be checked by examining the traffic on the freeways, or if movie theaters were being filled, showing people were engaged in leisure activities. There was a question if African Americans were going to celebrate the day or just use the day as a time to merely be lazy. I used to light my Christmas tree each night from Christmas through to the night of Kingdom Day in sympathy with Kwanzaa. But the neighbors complained bitterly that their children thought Christmas was returning and were demanding gifts. Imagine. So they were mad. So I compromised. Only on Kingdom Day Eve do I light my small fake Christmas tree in my living room window, and then for a last time on the evening of Kingdom Day, shoved in their face one last. Sorry. No one should assume that MLK Jr. Day can't be taken away as easily as the right to a safe and legal abortion has been taken away in so many of our states. Reverend William Barber, Reverend Jesse Jackson, and Reverend Al Sharpton all should know us by our actions here at our beloved Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside, California. We should make them proud, make ourselves proud, that by helping somebody, their lives have not been lived in vain, as Dr. King reminded us. Some of us even think that if Jesus was a messenger from God and not just a man who cast the money changers from the temple, the King was surely another messenger, and that texts of his speeches are worthy of study as much as passages of the Bible. Oh, hold on, you might say. You cannot compare words of a mere mortal to the Holy Scriptures, and Dr. King would be the first to agree with you. He would say his words are at best just well-intentioned. Some businesses display a countdown to Christmas each year. Their feelings, sorry, that's me. Their feelings for the joys of Christmas, of goodwill toward all humankind, simmer until boiling over on Christmas Day. In like fashion, you might consider on King Day to reflect on this admittedly corrupted version of King's free at last phrase. King Day at last, King Day at last, good God Almighty. It is Kingdom Day at last. Thank you very much.
Sorry, it kind of shut down and went all the way to the beginning. So just bear with me. I will say I am a member of the Riverside Resistance Revival Chorus, and we sing songs of unity and equality and at marches and demonstrations. And we always sing here in Riverside at the Martin Luther King Day Parade, as we did last week. And I was a little disappointed with the lack of white representation on that march. It was almost, I'd say 97% predominantly Black and 2% Hispanic, or maybe a 2.5 and only a 0.5 of Anglos. Well, I was just saying that the predominantly the crowd, the people who marched in the march, was like about 97% African American. It was about maybe 2.5% Hispanic, and then like 0.5 for Anglos. There were very few Anglo people participating in that march, at least as it came by where we were. Okay, maybe they didn't, maybe they stopped before, we were at the end, so maybe they stopped before they got to the end, because we were there at the end when they came by the Martin Luther King statue. That's where we were singing for them as they came in. But anyway, my point being that I wished we had more being in there, more of us white people. And now I'm at the place, and I would like to thank you for your words. And there. Passed by our song. Oh, here we are. Our closing hymn is "As You Go on Your Way," which you will not find in your hymnal this time, but the words will be projected on the wall, and feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you, but again with a mask on. So please stand in body or spirit if you wish, and join us in singing the hymn.
And now, as you go on your way, take care, take care. The love, all the love that you seek is there, it's there. Love flows through our words and deeds. Love knows all the things we need. Love grows as our hearts are freed from hatred, fear, and pain. Take care as you go on your way until we meet again. And now, as you go on your way, take care, take care. The love, all the love that you seek is there, it's there. Love flows through our words and deeds. Love knows all the things we need. Love grows as our hearts are freed from hatred, fear, and pain. Take care as you go on your way until we meet again.
Thank you. Be seated. We call to our minds today the life of a man of peace, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. We pray that, like Dr. King, we may have the courage to live our convictions, even in the face of overwhelming opposition, that we may live a life dedicated to justice, equality, and peace. We pray today for all those people suffering the terror and desolation of war in Ukraine, in Yemen, in Ethiopia, in 1,000 places that we don't even hear about in our news. We pray that all people may know peace and security, free from the fear of bombs, free from the horror of tyranny, free to live and free to love. In particular, we pray for children, that they may know healing that salves the wounds of war, both physical and spiritual. We pray that we may live to know a life without fear. And we pray for ourselves, for those in our community and in our own families who suffer, who mourn, who face the extraordinary and the everyday difficulties and fears of this life. At times we are overwhelmed. At times we despair that in the face of the forces of opposition and sickness, of violence and destruction, our actions, our work, our faith seems to amount to nothing. Dr. King reminds us that with love and faith, one person really can change the world. Oh God, grant us ears to hear the prophets of our own time. May we have the wisdom to discern their message through the noise and discord of our lives. May we have the strength to do what must be done in this world. May we find the courage to live our lives as lives of conviction, of spirit, of faith. May we know justice and peace in our time. Amen, namaste, and blessed be. And thank you again, Walt, for sharing your valuable time and insights with us this morning. I know that this is a subject that comes from your heart and your passion and your emotions, and thank you for that. It is sincerely appreciated, and we look forward to seeing you again. And for those who would like to stay in the sanctuary for 10 or 15 minutes for questions or to share some discussion or observations from the service, please remain in the sanctuary, or if you're online, please remain online. And please be aware that these comments will be posted online. And for the rest of you, if you don't wish to do that, you are free to go into our parish hall and to adjourn. So is there anyone who would like to come to the mic to make a statement, or? Okay, Pat.
I just want to thank you, Walt. I thought that was really good. And I loved your personal observations and stuff.
Thank you.
For those of us who lived through that time and the way the world has changed, I remember when Obama was elected, I did think that there was an end to racism. And then I was astonished when that turned out not to be the case. But anyway, thank you so much for those comments. And I don't know what I expected to happen, but I always thought, I think while I was working, we always went to work and participated in the ceremonies there, because I worked at a hospital and we did honor King, and you know, we had events there. And I think this year I missed it. I missed the march, but I had COVID, so.
Yes, you had a reason.
A good excuse. Anyway, thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello. Coming from a background in education as a teacher, I believe it's important to have detail and historical information when I state a cause I'm believing in. Thank you, Walt, for taking the time, and it took a lot of time to go through all those details of historical events and how they have affected the now in positive and in negative ways. More importantly, thank you, Walt, for this powerful message delivered so excellently today, which hopefully will resonate with whomever hears it. And those folks don't just keep it in their minds, but they send it forward now armed with data to reinforce the importance of going forward in a better way than some have at this point. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. I'm going to try to make this brief. We always know how that goes. I'm going to try. Walt, I'm doing something for the Dickens Festival, and the comparison between MLK and H.G. Wells hurts my heart. MLK, let's make a big tent. If you're hurting, if you're hurting, if you're hurting, if you're hurting, come on in, let's get this fixed up. Let's make it so nobody can hide behind the fact that they don't like you because the color of your skin, your religious symbology, what have you. King builds a big place and says, come on in, let's get this fixed. H.G. Wells, when he was trying to do a utopia, it was editing. We can make this work, but only if we stay away from those guys, stay away from those guys, stay away from those guys. Hell, execute them if you get the angle of the moment. If not, starve them, sterilize them, what have you. And it happened because he'd seen the steaming crowds, and he just said, We can't make all this work. And when you look at eugenics, when you look at utopias, your choices seem to be between, can we raise everyone up with a shot of nanite super glue to the arm? Or do we have to go for the smaller tent and leave people out? And remember, the people we leave out never look too different from us. So there's me and mine, and then there's you weirdos out there in Ethiopia who don't seem to have been able to live nicely with each other in the last few centuries. So I've given up on y'all. And the idea that this utopia thing, it hurt me, because this whole thing about being a Unitarian, we're not too far from utopias, a lot of us. That whole list there is a hope that we can stop being bastards to each other. And MLK is the reminder that says, let's get unused to the othering things. Let's make sure that the money doesn't get sucked down some rabbit hole, and maybe we can be good to each other.
Yes, thank you, Walt. Thank you for those comments. And yeah, I also remember hearing about the post-racial America that was supposed to happen during the Obama administration. But I do remember that even from the beginning, there were the Obama birther conspiracies that was pioneered by people like Trump from the beginning. And even beyond that, the conspiracies that Michelle Obama was secretly a trans woman. These things were lobbied from the beginning. Dick Cheney supporters saying that they don't trust Obama to take care of the country because he's an Arab. And so I think those were seen from the beginning. And even we now, of course, will forever associate the Trump administration with the Black Lives Matter movement. But during the Obama administration, we had Eric Garner, who also was choked to death, saying that he couldn't breathe for a nonviolent crime. And the only difference really that I see is that the Obama administration was willing to say, oh, that was a bad thing. They also didn't do anything about it. But the fact that Obama was willing to say it was bad was enough to placate the liberals into not rioting and asking for any kind of systematic change. I really appreciated that you mentioned MLKJ's willingness to be against the war. And of course, he also worked closely, you didn't mention too much about Malcolm X, but he worked closely also with Malcolm X, who was a devout Muslim. And we, of course, and coming back to Obama, we do like to think of him as being a great icon for the left, but he also did commit more drone strikes than any other president had in history. And to quote him, we killed some people, as he said, in those Muslim countries. And so, you know, his hands are also not entirely clean. And so I think it's all very complicated. And there is no really obvious way except for remembering, of course, that we all need to be in it together to find the truth.
I do want to say something briefly in defense of President Obama. Perhaps some of you did see, I was shocked when Cheney appeared, reported in the regular legitimate news, the networks, as I mentioned, on 2 different occasions when he threatened the life of President Obama. He did say, if I am hauled before the Hague for war crimes, I cannot guarantee the safety of the president. Imagine somebody being able to say such a thing and the impact it had on President Obama. And that quote about Michelle saying, make sure you aren't the first dead black. I don't think so much that she put that out. I think that was put out for her. And I think actually when you become president, so many of them, you might notice, especially in the older days, look very ashen. At first, they're elected, they're very thrilled, they're taken back and briefed, and they're handed the football, the launch machine to destroy the world. And I think every president except Trump comes out looking ashen when they're told the weight of the world and nuclear disaster all sits on your head. I think, I could be wrong, I think Obama said the one thing that I don't miss about the job is, and then he pointed at the football.
I had wanted to say that the thing that I feel that, I don't know if this hits me the hardest down in my soul and my heart is at the times we live in now. And that is the lack of people of faith. And I will even say the Christian faith, to come out and speaking out against injustices, against what's happening to our country, against the groups that were attacking the Capitol building. I mean, in the past, I remember in like the 60s that there were Catholics, there were like a lot of different people of faith who came out to support Martin Luther King, came out to say, we need everyone together. We are one big family under God, and we are all brothers and sisters. And I just feel like that is not here at this time any longer, and that hurts my soul. So. And I also wanted to say, in no way, when I was talking about my sadness of not having more white people there at the march, my group, which is predominantly white, we were what we saw coming at the end, we were more white people there than we saw in the march. In no way, I mean, that's just in general in our community. In no way was that like, why wasn't our church there or anything? I did not mean that at all. I just meant it was sad that it seems as though the MLK parade in my community has become an opportunity for the Black community within Riverside to come together and do something. And I just wish that it was a wider community effort and not just a Black effort. That was my point in that. So is there anyone else that has anything to say? Well, again, thank you very much.
If I could say one last brief thing, if I may. As you probably know, when after you.
Okay, sure.
After you.
In all of the times that I've been aware of political movement and things going on in this country, it always I become more aware of all the machinations that are going on in the background that we never see, that really leads what's going on in this country. There's always something going on in the background that's pushing things in a certain direction, a direction that I think the people that do that, if they're hiding in the dark, then they're not doing anything good. I have to say thank you, Mr. Trump, for coming forward, and it's unfortunate we had to have you, but all of the behind-the-scenes stuff that's been going on for decades was finally brought to the light by him, and is now seen in the glare of the light, and we're pushed. Those of us that are the bleeding heart liberals are pushed to step forward, unfortunately, one more time to help lead a movement now that addresses what has so glaringly been going on in this country for a long time. The racism that's been going on has just gone underground, but its effects have still been with us. And now we get a chance to really address it and listen to all the stupid stuff that people say to go, oh, no, that's not true. There's no institutional racism, and listen to the stupidness of it. It brings them out. Thank you. Thank you for standing up and showing us your true colors. scholars.
I just wanted to briefly say that you're probably aware that when the defense budget was recently passed, that $50 billion was thrown in addition on top. I also have heard through legitimate news that half of children in poverty could be lifted up out of poverty for $15 billion. So when you consider the evil triplets that Martin Luther King mentioned, racism, extreme materialism, and militarism, we certainly are, it seems that we are predominantly ruled by those interests. Thank you.
Again, thank you, Walt, for coming forward today with what I know is deep in your heart. And I think it resonated with the rest of us here. And so you may leave now. There's goodies out there. And don't forget to buy your Stater Brother cards if you are so inclined. Go in peace.